what a weird day of movie watching we had.
Yes.
The last two movies were great. It's hard to
Yeah.
believe we started out this day, though, with two other movies. One an animated Noah's Ark movie, the other some tween vlog movie.
Hey, Jerrid, what did you do yesterday? Oh, I went over to Brad's and watched cartoons.
At least for 25% of the time.
Yeah.
Since this was the fourth movie we watched today, I was much more awake at the beginning of the day, and we're watching this, and I'm going like, man, it really sucks I'm the most tired while watching Dredd, but I was just totally alert and fine with my coffee and everything during the Noah's Ark film. Glad I was at 100% when watching that. This is a Patreon request, so a very special thanks to Grant Davis, who made the request for us to watch Dredd. You can follow the links in the description for our links over to Patreon. Also, it's at patreon.com/thecinemasnob, where you can take part in polls over there. Watch early Snob episodes are also posted on Patreon, and there's AMAs as well, and you can also make requests. I can tell I'm tired because I'm starting to stumble over words. No, I was really glad that this one got picked, because we never did do a midnight screenings on this.
Seriously?
Yeah. So
wow.
This movie's from 2012. And we started midnight screenings in 2011, so 10 years ago. That's hard to believe.
Yeah.
We started it 10 years ago, but those first 2 years, it was just seasonally that we were doing it, because the only midnight and pre-releases were during the summer at the time.
Okay, yeah.
It didn't start being year-round till 2013.
Okay.
So I think when we originally reviewed this, I think it was maybe a couple of us reviewing it, but we weren't in the car,
right.
So I guess that makes all the difference in the world. So maybe I think there might have been, I don't know. It's one of the old blip vlog reviews. So when this movie came out, I ended up putting this at number one of the best movies of the year that it came out. I haven't seen it in 9 years, which is weird because I owned it. I did, but we talked about this in the Mask of the Phantasm one. I just don't really rewatch a lot of movies or really have time to.
Yeah.
So when I saw this pop up as a Patreon request, I'm like, oh great, I've not seen this since I saw it in theaters, or at least, I think there was one night we put it on when we were all drunk.
Yeah.
So I might as well have been sucking on slow-mo medication.
Yeah, I think I saw it with you, actually.
Really?
Yeah, first time.
Like when reviewing it on the vlog, I also don't remember who was there. I'm sure I was lit, so the 3D was probably great.
Yeah.
So watching it again 9 years later, oh my god, this movie holds up.
It really does.
Holy shit.
Love it.
It was a great theatrical experience. You didn't see it in theaters, right?
No, I missed it.
I did, and I wish I could have seen it more than once in theaters. But it was only out for a couple weeks, I believe. But, man, that 3D. I think I still have my 3D glasses for it.
Nice.
That 3D, dude, it sucks that the best 3D that I saw in terms of the 3D effects are on a couple of movies that did not do well at the box office.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember Drive Angry with Nicolas Cage. That 3D was so cool. That was old school. We're throwing shit at the screen.
Oh, cool.
And things like that. And just some really cool and twisted 3D they did in it. That movie sadly didn't do well at the box office. Neither did this. And when they were doing all the slow motion effects and everything, seeing it in the theater, when he bursts, when there's that early gunfight, when they're in the building, everyone does the slow-mo.
Yeah.
That blood you see coming out, they would put in a little bar at the bottom of the screen, a black bar, so it kind of looked like the blood was coming out of the screen.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool. And you know what? The movie is still great when you're watching it at home.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, I never got to experience the 3D effect, but yeah, I definitely enjoyed watching this movie even at home, because I mean It's gritty. It's dark. Karl Urban is such a great Dredd.
He is. And it says a lot about a movie where you can tell they really wanted to perfect a theatrical experience for this. Again, like we were talking about the 3D and all of the effects they put in it. But while they paid a lot of attention to that, they were paying attention to many other aspects of this movie as well that still makes it an amazing movie, even when you're watching it at home.
Yeah.
Even I've seen movies before that are a wild spectacle on screen, and they're good to see in theaters, but you lose something when it's on a television. That's not the case with this. This is still, from beginning to end, honestly, I would say it's my favorite comic book movie of the last 10 years. What I love about this is how the story of this, it's not this big fight to save the world or anything like this. It's not this battle against this world domination villain, or not compared to what you're seeing in Marvel movies and things like that. It's not this real global threat. It is just kind of this simple story of these two cops in the future in this radiated land who answer this call and go in this high rise and are stuck in this high rise battling out this crime lord for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
I really like that it is this cool, very centralized cop story that doesn't feel like it's underselling this universe or anything. It makes you want to see more. In a perfect world, this is a franchise.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it's not sadly, but I do think that there are comic book sequels to it that do tie into this movie. I like that about it. And it's so cool that it came out the same time that the Raid Redemption did. Both have very, very similar plots, but both unique enough from each other that both stand out as being two of the best action movies of their decade.
Yeah.
And I love everything in this building, because it's like this future where each of these high rises are kind of their own city.
Yeah.
But vertical in these giant skyscrapers where there are all of these stores and apartments and businesses and movie theaters.
Right, yeah. I did see there was an entrance for a theater.
Yeah.
Like in the background. Yeah.
Both of them I saw in the theater.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I did. Laura just saw this movie for the first time, and she was up there watching it with us. She hadn't seen the Sylvester Stallone one.
I'm trying to think if I saw the Stallone one in theaters.
Oh, in theaters.
I should have. I'll say
I
that.
did. I saw it opening day. It came out the same weekend as Apollo 13, and my dad and I are just diehard Stallone fans, and so we're looking at movies out this week, and my dad's like, "Oh, we got Apollo 13 and Judge Dredd. What are we seeing today?" I'm like, "Oh, we're seeing Judge Dredd. That's what we're doing today."
I was living in Jerseyville at the time. Google that town. Probably saw it at the 2-screen theater they have down there. Yeah. 2 screens. And it was a Carasotes too.
I think we saw it at the mall. I think we did. We saw it on the West End, so it would have either been Parkway or the mall, and I think we saw it at the mall. I think that was 1995. I do like the Stallone one.
I do too.
It's not a good movie, but it's kind of great.
Yeah.
I told my wife, I go like, okay, if Dredd 2012 is Saturday Night Fever, Dredd 95 is Staying Alive. Which, Staying Alive, not the best movie in the world, but kind of great in its own way. That's sort of not, it's like that only if Staying Alive was made first. It's, also a very good theatrical experience. I'll say that, between the costume design and the effects. All they're doing in Mega City and in that movie.
And
it's
Rob
watchable.
Schneider.
And Rob Schneider as well. It's a Rob Schneider Stallone double feature with Demolition Man. Demolition Man is the far better movie. But Judge Dredd, it's never boring.
No.
The 1995 one.
No, it is fun.
I do like how because in this one, it's a much grittier megacity than it is in the 1995 one. Mm-hmm. And I like how it's these future weapons, but they're also kind of primitive. Like, they're weapons that you see in a science fiction film and have the settings of these sci-fi weapons, but almost like they're primitive versions of them. Yeah. So, like they would be in their early stages of where you could see them being perfected in years to come afterwards. How they have a lot of different settings between grenades, shit blowing up, stun guns, and things like that, but a lot of them have to be charged.
I think I remember the Stallone version having that as well, having those guns as well.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. I just love the idea of this one gun being like 10 guns in one. You know?
The kills are great, man. When he lights that dude's that dude's head on fire with that flare. Yeah, that's in the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah. In fact, the name of that round was Hot Shot.
Yeah,
and he tied that in as a pun. He was like.
It does so many things because it's really just taking place in a day, in like an afternoon, and between how it flashes back to certain characters, it does such a great job of giving you everything you need to know about the characters in the film. From the dialogue, you totally get who Dredd is and what his personality is like and what he's like on the job from what they tell you in the film. To the villain, Lena Headey, who's amazing in this movie.
Right?
And what it does with her backstory at the beginning, where it gives you this little information about where she comes from, how she started her empire, and they do such a perfect job at that you can fill in all those gaps in your head and kind of just see an entire movie in your head of this character. And she is scary as fuck in this movie.
She really is. She really is. I mean, she's just got this unhinged, grandiose sense of she doesn't give a shit, you know?
And you can kind of see an arc in her backstory a little bit, like, because what they tell you about her, about how she was like this streetwalker who she got her face cut up and decided to make her own empire. Yeah. You can almost see that playing out in your head, where this person probably didn't start out this sadistic and just living this life and being this crime lord just turned this person into this rabid sociopath and just complete sadist that you see in this. The movie's great at that. And has one of the best final kills I've ever seen for a film. So when we saw this in the theater, it was a group of us.
Oh wait, are we sparing them?
It's a 9-year-old movie. Like the movie's 9 years old. You should have seen this movie by now. So when we saw it in theaters, and she's given that slow-mo and chucked off of that balcony at the end, when it's in that super slow motion and her face is within inches of hitting the ground, Brian was sitting next to me, and he just goes, "Oh no." Like something horrific is about to happen, and it did. It's one of the few movies I've seen, one of the very, very few movies I've seen that does CG blood incredibly well, where it's actually part of the movie's style. You can tell. I mean, I'm not saying it does it well and that it looks real. I don't mean that. You can tell it's a special effect put in, but it is part of the movie's style, and you get the sense that there's a point to it, because it's blended in with a lot of these slow motion effects, and even that is incorporated into the movie. I see a lot of 3D movies, especially around that time, that for really no reason will put things in slow motion just because it's in 3D. You'd see Paul W.S. Anderson do that a lot. In this, a lot of it does make for very cool 3D effects. Same with that blood shooting out at the screen.
Yeah.
But it's factored into the movie's plot.
Yeah.
It's that drug that's making him do this.
And I think you really hit the nail on the head. You make a case for when it's appropriate to use CGI blood. Is that, you know, I can't imagine if you're filming like fake blood. And you're trying to render that in 3D, it's not as easy to do as if you were to use CG blood.
Well, it all gives it a very much a comic book style in this movie. From the camera angles to the shots and everything, it looks like it's really mimicking a comic book atmosphere, and that's that mixed in with what they're doing with a lot of the 3D effects really gives it. You feel it's part of the movie's style, as opposed to they're doing it to be cheap.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, when you see 98% of the time when you see a lot of CG blood in the movie, it's to shoot it quick and be cheap and save some money.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not the... Look, I mean, whether you like it or not in this movie, that's up to the viewer, of course, but it's not done to be cheap or anything like that. You can tell it's part of this movie's aura, it's part of this movie's atmosphere. I mean, they had to throw the line in there, I am the law.
Yeah.
And they do, and it's great when he does it, because it's hard... I imagine it's no easy task, because we've been doing the Stallone impression for 25 plus years.
Yeah.
So you know the line's got to be in this.
Yeah.
And he does it in such an intimidating way.
Yeah.
And such a scary way, too, that I never smirk and think back to Sylvester Stallone doing it. No, not in like, well, sure, in that like,
nostalgia.
Yeah, in that it's a familiar line, and but not in any kind of mimicking way or any kind of way that I'm like laughing or smirking on the inside. It's like when you see someone say a James Bond catchphrase or something. Yeah. Like, okay, you'll picture other actors in your head, but it's not taking you out of it, and each one kind of makes it their own. Yeah. In this, Karl Urban makes it his own.
Oh, he really does.
He really owns it when he does that line.
He really does.
It helps too that he's not shouting it. Yeah. I think that might, because it sounds different when he does it. I am the law. Yeah. Stallone is kind of great in that movie. I'll have to show Laura that one sometime. Yeah. Request it again on Patreon. We'll talk about the 1995 one. Did this? So for the most part, this held up for you watching it about 9 years later.
Absolutely. I mean, it was. I'd say that this is a movie that you'd want to own.
Yeah, I did. I never watched it when I owned it, but I did own it. Well, I probably still do. I've got my DVDs and everything over in storage. I do like that, like, Dredd kind of treats this like this is just a normal day.
I know, right?
On the job. Like, and for all we know, maybe it is a really normal day. Yeah. Like...
Scowl, his permanent scowl is just amazing.
Yeah,
I love it.
There's all this shocking stuff going on in this building, and this is a hard predicament that they're in. But he's never scared. Right. He's never like really shocked by anything. He's
just disappointed.
Yeah, he seems frustrated, like, great, I gotta deal with this bullshit today. I just did this last week. And so, but even by the end of it, when he's leaving, he's just kind of given a breakdown of these crimes that were committed and what the scene report is in this high-rise crime scene where there are so many dead people everywhere.
Right. It was so great about that description, too, was that, like, his superior comes up and he goes, she's like, what happened? And then he's just like, drug bust.
Yeah. I love that.
Perps didn't want to cooperate.
Yeah. He's got a real Clint Eastwood aura to him in this. Like, he's totally like hardcore Eastwood in this, where it's just like there is just this brutal, sadistic shit going on, but it really just seems like a regular Tuesday to this guy. I would give this, as far as a grade goes, I would put this as one of the best movies of that decade. I would. I think it's one of the best comic book movies of earlier. I said 10 years. I would even go so far as to say 20 years. I'd really have to look at a list. But you add on top of that how much I still love this movie watching it near 10 years later. You asked me once before what constitutes, like, for me, giving something an A+. And I've said, like, what was it? I said something like, oh, it's when you go see something and it's got to be, like, really life-changing when you watch it. There's another factor in on that, too. When something is when you're watching something that you gave such high marks to 10 years ago in calling this the best movie of 2012 and having it still hold up that much, all the great things about it, nearly 10 years later, and loving it all the same, even though there's a big gap between the last time I saw it. Say, I'd give this an A+.
Really?
I'd give this movie an A+.
That's it, and so that's what I was thinking too. Like when you first started talking about that, I'm like, whoa, is he really gonna give this an A+?
I'll give it an A+.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
I'll agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll agree. Yeah, no, it was a really fun movie. It was a really good movie. It still holds up 10 years later. I was thinking to myself, yeah, maybe we could just give this an A or maybe an A-. But no, you're right. Yeah, I could definitely agree with an A+.
Yeah, I think adding, like, there's nothing wrong with adding, like, a lot of time after you've seen something and after everything's been out and factoring that into the grade that you're giving it. So I highly recommended it back then, and I still do now. It's over on Amazon Prime. Yeah. I don't know how we didn't watch it in 3D. I don't know how it looks watching it in 3D on television now. I know you can, but I don't have a 3D TV or anything like that, so I don't know what that looks like. I'd be interested to find out. Because, it was, I wish they would bring this back to theaters. I do. No. Like, yeah.
I kind of feel like now what with us, like, phasing out of COVID and some theaters are open, like I think maybe a theater should take a chance on it and
that'd be cool.
show it on a screen.
You know, they might, because it's got a 10-year anniversary coming up next year. So they might. I mean, it's a movie. It's one of those great films that, sadly, it just didn't do anything when it came out. Yeah. But it does have a very loyal audience.
Well, and so that's why I'm saying maybe now would be the time, is so that, like, you know, because theaters right now are just showing old movies on screens just as a lot
of them are,
you know, just as as an attempt to recoup from the last year. Yeah, I'd say AMC, if you're watching, put this on a screen. Let's see how it does.
Yeah, if you grew up on, you know, everything from The Terminator to RoboCop to all those great brutal sci-fi action movies, and like Predator 2, this feels like a love letter to all three of them.
It really does.
Like, this I'd put up there with this. I would put up there with all of those. I really, really would. Especially Predator 2 in tone and how kind of brutal some of the action is, and some of the color scheme of the movie. Predator 2 is underrated as hell. I love Predator 2. So yeah, thank you again, Grant Davis, for recommending us watch this. It was fun to actually have a proper midnight screenings of this.
Yeah. I can't believe we didn't, though. That's shocking.
Yeah, when this show became year round, it was January of 2013, and the first one was Texas Chainsaw 3D. So another 3D movie, all right.
Well, that was the time too. Like during those times, just. Every movie was in 3D. 3D was just such a buzzword,
and it was rare that you would, because a lot of them were just kind of very, I don't know if cheap's the right word, but just very cheap conversions,
right? Because they weren't shot in 3D; they were just converted to 3D in post to try and make some money. That's right, because the ticket prices were much higher back then.
That's right, I forgot about that. Every now and then you'll see some 3D movie out there in theaters now, but not
Right.
Not during that phase.
And
Like, during that phase, it was a lot. It was most movies.
Most movies were in 3D, and they really didn't need to be.
This is one of those that they really took very cool advantage of it. And until then, thanks for watching.
Thanks, Durant.